Okay, our presentation for today will be care of children with special needs. First of all, we'd like to welcome all of you back to our new school year. This will be the agenda that we're going to be covering. The first topic will be the MOUs, the Memorandum of Understanding. And I do apologize because I'm a little bit under the weather. The second one will be first monitoring visit. Then we're going to discuss the center's finding report, the request for intervention packet form, and something that's new for this school year is going to be the ACQ3 and the ACQ SE. And then we're also going to discuss the teacher's home visits. This is the copy of Harlingen MOU. This is what we sign every year that we send out to the superintendents of each school district. So we have one for Brownsville, Los Fresnos, Port Isabel, um, Raymondville, Santa Rosa, Lyford, all the schools that we deal with. And this is what he tells us that this is a partnership between both of us. So here you'll have time to read it as I'm talking. But this is just to let us know that, what Harlingen School District is going to be able to do for us. Okay, they are going to let the parents know regarding their rights. They are going to let the parents know regarding the performance of the evaluation. And also they're going to discuss on the art meeting, when it takes place. We do have a very good partnership with all the school districts. And after this, of course, we're going to go ahead and work on the IEP for the child when the child does finish up his evaluation, of course. It also states here that we have any kind of in-service training, to let us know anything, to invite the parents, to invite the staff. And most of the ones that does give me a lot of information on trainings is BISD. So as soon as I get something from them, of course I share that with the centers in Brownsville. Here's the agreement that Ninos agrees to do with the partnership with the Harlingen School District. Of course, we facilitate. It's between the coordinator from the from Harlingen School District and us here at the office. So normally we coordinate services. We go back and forth, make sure that the kids get evaluated. If they have a hard time getting in contact with the parent, we'll go ahead and do that for them to let the parent know that the school is trying to get in touch with them. Um, we refer any children that we believe that has any suspected of any kind of disability. Um, and of course, we also try to attend the art meetings. So this is very important because as we go on with this presentation, we need to understand that when we have the concern or the parent has the concern, we have to notify the parent that an art meeting is going to take place, and it's very important for them to invite us. To invite, if we can attend, it will be Dalia, my specialist, or myself. And of course, we would love to have the teachers there because they're the most important person. The reason being that they know this child very well. Okay, so this is the agreement that we have with them. Of course, we try to get copies of any documentation that they might have. So when we do a referral to the school district, we do submit the copies of the lab BK of the child. We submit physicals, hearing ambitions, and extra stuff that they might need. Some school district ask me for the child's social security number and the parent's ID. So it all depends on the school district that we have. A child might be placed in the what is called now the ECSE unit, okay, which is the Early Childhood Special Education. Before it used to be called PPCD. Now they changed it. So we do have those partnerships that if the child does qualify for services, that we do have services, meaning that they could attend with us in the morning or the afternoon, or with the school district in the morning or afternoon. So we partner up with that. We do, for those kids that do have severe needs, sometimes we have to let the school district go ahead and have them there food days, food day. because the best interest for us and for the child and the parent and the teacher and everybody else is for the child to have the best setting for them. Okay? So that's very important to know. Here it talks about the IFSPs. You know that after the child early Head Start children qualify for services, we do get an IFSP from them. You know, the Head Start program does receive an IEP. The early Head Start receives an IFSP. You know, this is the individual family service plan. This is, they do have a caseworker that works with the family, in the Region 1 in Easter Seals, and it will state there on how they're working with them, and also it'll state on the needs of the child, what we need to work with that child. Okay, so we already covered the MOUs. So you know that every year review the MOUs, make sure that everything's covered there. We do have not only disabilities, but we have the education department MOU in there. We have the health, just to make sure that those kids that are in the school district, that we also get a copy of any hearing and visions that this nurse might do for them. We have transition and the inside the MOU. We have transportation if it's being provided. So it's everything that we provide here at the Head Start program is stated on the MOU. But today I just wanted to focus on my area, on the disabilities. Here, I just wanted to show you what my part is, in the Head Start program and how we work in referring these children out to the different agencies. The first thing that we do, on the left side, you get to see the application. Okay, so this is the first thing that we do here at the office. Our family first workers, they do an awesome job out there recruiting and getting these children in. Our part is to review the applications. We have our coordinators from family service reviewing them, make sure income wise they do qualify. But the things that I look at is the one that is circled right there. Is that has the disability, or is the parent suspecting a disability on their child? Has the child been referred to the local education agency or to ECI? If they have, do we have an IFSP on that child? Or do we have an art packet for that child? If the child's getting outside services, from a private rehab, I like to see if there's anything there. Because remember, if there's an evaluation from a rehab, that's more documentation, that's more supporting documentation for us to refer the child to the school district. And of course, if we have an ECI, IFSP on file and an ART, it's already going to tell us that this child does qualify for services. So if the teacher had the concern, she doesn't have to worry about it because the child's already getting services. Okay, another items that we look at when we do the first monitoring visit is that we look at the child's physical. This is very important here, and I remember when I was at the center level, when I first got my kids at the beginning of the school year, I would go over the folder. As a teacher, I would sit down and review everything the parent put in there. Okay. And one of the things is the physical, review, is his hearing okay? Is his vision okay? His speech, okay? Is there anything else that the doctor noted there? And one thing that is very important to me is to look at the findings in the bottom. Is there anything that the doctor put down there that the child was anemic, the child was underweight or overweight, the child is being referred for speech? That is very important for us to follow up, okay? Because sometimes we don't look at that form and then you're thinking like, okay, there's something wrong with this child. I'm calling his name and he's not looking at me. He doesn't turn his face. Or you might see the child that just sitting down very, not really paying attention. Is it that he might have a health issue in there? And if something is written down for speech, we have to make sure that we follow up. Is the child getting any kind of rehab services right now? So these are things that we want to go over with the parent, and it's very important because sometimes I have seen in the past, and I think I've mentioned this, I have shared this story with you all, that we had a student that the parent had never taken the child for a physical, and the only reason uh, the child went for a physical is because we needed one for Head Start program. When the physical was done, they did lab work on the child, and it takes a few days or a week, and they called the parent in. And sad to say that this child was found with leukemia, and she did not last very long with us, but I believe that is very important, even from early Head Start for those kids to get that physical, because we need to make sure that they're in good health, and that if something is abnormal, that there's a chance that the child could get the help that he needs, like this particular kid, she was, either the 3 or 4 program, but if the parent would have taken this child to her physicals yearly, she might have found this out, earlier, or maybe it just happened that time, but that's why to me it's very important, to follow up on the findings in the bottom. Anything that's written, you know, think of these kids as your own kids, okay? You know, you want to make sure if you have children, you always want to make sure that your children are in good health. So these are your kids for a whole year, you know, and we want to make sure that they're in good health, and we want to provide them the best services that is possible out there. Make sure that they get their nutrition in there. Make sure that they eat. We have to make sure we introduce all these foods to them, and they're gonna be your kids for a whole year. Okay, just remember that. After we do the first visit with you all, we review the folders, we look at the applications, we look at the physicals, we try to look at anything that's written by the parent that they might have a concern. We'll write it down. The purpose of the visit is the monitoring of folders. Okay, items of concerns, that's where we're going to go ahead and place the child's name and what the concern is. The plan of action. What is the plan of action? The plan of action is for you to follow up with the parent and ask her if she has the same concerns. Okay, this normally the first time, the teachers are rarely gonna get to know the child, but depending on when we go out there, you might have, I mean, you teachers are very well trained that right away when there's something wrong with a child, that you do talk to the parent like, I have a concern on your child on this. Okay. This report is shared with the area manager when we're there, and we leave the copy. So we have to make sure that, that copy is being shared to you all, like that. The process of referring these children could start early. Okay. Another item that we have here is if the concern is there, the teacher has the concern, the parent has the concern, or the child already coming in with a qualified IFSP and or an IEP, we write it in the yellow folder that comes back and forth. We'll go ahead and put the child's name, as teachers, make sure that it's printed clearly. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and put the date of birth. We're gonna go ahead and put the teacher. The reason behind the teacher is that, to me, is that if I have a question on this child, or I would like to find out more information about this child, I need to know who is the contact person. Because you know that sometimes at the beginning of the school year, we do have the Child Plus, but it takes a while for the lab software to get going, and that's the only one that tells me who the teacher is. So if you're gonna go ahead and refer, put your name there, please. And then, of course, put down why are you referring the child. The biggest number that we do get is language, and we do get a lot of children with development delays. Okay, at the end, some of these kids do end up qualifying for speech and some of them qualify for non-categorical. That means that some of these kids have the characteristics of being artistic. Okay, we have a couple of children that are Down syndrome, and then of course there's other children that have other health impairments. The rest of the form there is just for us to complete because we are going to send you an intervention packet that I'm going to show you next. After you submit that yellow folder to us, we review the folder and we have to make sure staff, whoever does this form, that is completed. Sometimes I'll just get the name of the child, the date of birth, parent's name, and maybe the reason for the referral and signatures, and that's it. Okay, please take the time. This year we're going to implement timelines. Okay, it's going to be a timeline. Then when you receive this form, I might just give you 5 days so I could get it back. I have other years that somehow the forms get lost, or the form was never given to you as a teacher, but we do have documentation when we send it out. So we are going to follow up within those 5 days. This intervention packet is filled in by the teacher and make sure that the parent signs off on it. Parents do have the right to refuse services. Okay. And here you could see it in the bottom that says refusal of services and the reason behind it. Sometimes the parents' notes in there could be that, oh, my child is too young. This is the first year my child's attending a school setting. I want to give my child some time. So those are notes that, parents put in there. But does it mean that we're going to stop there? No. Because I know that you all do the first assessment, maybe by September, October, then we do another one in January. If the concern is still there and is showing, we need to report to the parent. There's something that concerns me and I would like to talk to you and review the assessment with you and let you know, that your child is delayed in this area. Okay? For Head Start, the ACQ3, it will be done by the parent and only for children that are not getting special services. This is the ACQ3 is going to be a new instrument that we're implementing, and right in a little bit later, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it is. It's nothing for you to worry about. Our goal is for the software to be up and running in our webpage, but it might take time for that. So it's going to be a form, a paper form that might be given to the parent. If that's the case, that we just give them the form and it goes by the age of the child. The parent fills it in and submits it back to you. Okay. The early Head Starts, they already have some knowledge of this because they've been doing it for a while. So for us, that's important because that's part of the Regional 1 or Easter Seals documentation that we need to submit. An ISD referral will be issued to the teacher. If so, it is so important to set up a meeting with the parent. Okay, during this time, let them know the ISD will get in contact with them for the evaluation to get started. Okay, that's very important, of letting them know that they're going to get in touch with them. Because sometimes the school district will call them and they're like, well, I didn't know that. Oh, no, I don't remember signing a form for that. So make sure you let them know. I am working on a checklist, for the future that maybe something that you guys could check off and, give to the parent like, okay, we already submitted this referral and they're going to get in touch with you, something that they could post in their home to remind them. Another thing that you're going to be getting, part of the intervention packet, is the consent to release. Okay, this is very important. What we did this year, because of the partnership that we have with school district and ECI, is that we merge this form in one. Okay, because we do have a lot of early Head Start children that do turn 3 and they end up having an IEP. So this is only one form that we're going to use for both of you, okay, with Head Start and Early Head Start. Here we have to make sure that normally we put the information in on the child student's name, date of birth, the center, what school district, and who's going to be getting this consent. The only thing that I need from the parent is for them to check off on what of them, informing them that the reason behind this consent is for us to get copies of the art meeting, the evaluation, and this is for Head Start. If it's going to be for Early Head Start, it's for us to get a copy of the IFSP, the discharge summary, or the IFSP transition services. Okay, this past year, we started asking for the transition services because that is when the ECI get in touch with the parent and let them know 6 months ahead they'll start doing a transition regarding if the child needs to be referred to the school district. Okay, so in that form it's gonna let us know what's going on, and this year we were able to get some of this forms back, and it was telling us that the parent had requested for them to go ahead and get a referral done to special services. It also, in some other cases, it showed us that the parent did not want to continue with the school district, that they're just going to go ahead and take them to a private rehab. Or it would tell us that, the parent just wants to keep them in Head Start and just for us to monitor. So every form that we do get from them is very important because there is going to tell us if the child did qualify for services or if the child did not qualify for services. And the same thing is that when we do get the evaluation and the art, it's going to explain to us what if the child did qualify, in what section did the child qualify on, and what's going to be the goals that the child has to meet by the end of the school year. Okay, that's where the IEP comes in place. And that's where the teachers, both Early Head Start and Head Start, have to document on their lesson plan on how they're working with the child. Like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be one-to-one. Okay, it could be in a group setting. It could be when the child's in the learning areas. It could be when the child's in the playground that you're going to be observing this or helping the child in achieving that goal of their IEP. Okay, so this is like the fourth time that I tried to recording this, so let's see if this time works out. What is an ACQ3? The ACQ3 is a screening. It's a very simple screening like the way you all do it with the lab screening, but this screening is going to be done by the parent. Okay, as teachers, you might want to assist them in case they have any questions. It is going to be in English and in Spanish. We are going to have it on the website, but it's going to take time for that to get going, and running. For now, we're going to do the paper, the hard copy. And the way it is that right now I don't have it here because I just order it, but it's going to be something like this. It's going to have the months. It's going to have, hopefully it comes in with a user guide that you all see here. I apologize. This cough doesn't go away. And also it's going to come in with a CD where you're able to print it out there at the center. Everybody's going to get a box of the ACQ3. This is going to be used only, ACQ3 is going to be used only for children that are being referred for special services in Head Start. Okay, don't remember that. This is for the ACQ3 is going to be for the Head Start. That's going to be for kids for a referral for any suspected delay. But the ACQ3 is already being done by the Early Head Start. That instrument, they use it to get the children referred to ECI or Easter Seals. So that will continue, but now you are going to have your own box there at the center. Okay, it has a few questions. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes if they do it by paper. If they do it in the computer, it takes a little longer. It will calculate You have to calculate at the end the scoring and see if the child's going to need a referral or not. No referral. Here, I'm going to go ahead and show you a video, a little bit of what is the ACQ. It's very short. Just
The ASQ system is very easy to use. Families report that it's very understandable. The questions are asked in a simple way. The activities asked are easy for families to incorporate into their daily lives and their play with their children.
Parents are the ones utilizing the tool. So it really has an effect on the child with having an open dialogue with their parents and getting the parents engaged with their children and their developmental education.
Families become involved in the process of understanding their children's development and therefore supporting their children's development.
It lets them know that we respect what they know about their child, and we try to work with them in understanding milestones and what is developmentally appropriate for their child.
I'm training with people who have used the ASQ before because they love it. They really value not just the results they get, but the relationships it helps support with the families.
I love the ASQ because it's that beginning into the conversation of parents really learning that they're the experts on their own children and how we interact, and we're just coming in to support that.
If you clearly set the tone from the beginning, it's easy for parents and it's easy for providers to use.
You know, a great moment at work is when you can get a parent excited about their child's development, or where you get to be a part of a breakthrough moment.
When we can identify children that need extra help or enrichment in their development, we're going to have better outcomes.
It's almost like the world changed its colors when I began to realize how important it is for those relationships in a child's life, and the ages and stages social emotional allows for the beginning of that self-reflection.
Can the child teachers fill out this form? Yes. Because you guys spend a lot of time with this child, you know, you're able to do this form, you know, to assist. Because sometimes the parents might have one opinion and you might have your own opinion because you spend 8 hours with this child. Here is going to be the ACQH calculator you're going to be using. Here, for example, I put June the 4th, 2021, the date of birth of the child, and that he was 1 week, um, you know, in being born. So here's going to give me the calculation. He's 14 months and 3 days, and it was adjusted to 14 months and 3 days. The ACQ form the parent's going to be using is going to be the 14 months, and the ACQ SE, the social emotional 2, is going to be 12 months. So the system is able to do this, and I know Early Head Start already is used to using this, and the mentors out there. So if you need some assistance, you could, if you have an Early Head Start at your center, you're welcome to ask. Here's a very simple steps screen with the ACQ3. Try the items and answer the questions. Then score the questionnaire, and then you get the results. This is going to be something similar on how the form looks. It's going to have yes sometimes or not yet. Okay. Here we have the scoring system, the same. Right now they're talking about that fine motor there. It could be completed in 1 to 3 minutes. And then the results. We're going to go ahead and put the results here when you calculate everything, when you score it. And if the child does fall in the black area, that's already a red flag. In the gray, it's a little bit like we have to keep them in mind. Okay. And here you could see it. The scores falling in the white areas indicate the child is developing typical, which is here, right here. Scores falling in the gray area means that the child should be monitored, and another screening may be desirable in a few months, right here. And in the back area, that's where they have a risk of development delays and should be referred for further assessments. Okay, what to us is going to be an evaluation with the school district. I also purchased, we haven't received it yet, but when you all do the ACQ, it's going to let us know how can we help the parent. So I ordered 2 books in English and in Spanish. It's learning activities. So depending on where the child falls, we're able to print out this. And it says here that the book comes also with a CD. Okay, so it's going to give the parents ideas and activities how to work with their child. This is for the ACQ3. And we also order the ACQ social emotional. This is going to be the one that replacing the mental health questionnaire. Like I mentioned before, the parents will do this, but also in this packet, it's the same thing. It has the forms, and it has the user guide, and it has the CDs. I also ordered the learning activities for the social emotional. So like that, we could give the parent a handout, on how to help their child at home.
And we're excited to have Vince here today. Vince has been working in early childhood for over 20 years, and I'm lucky. Leah and I are both really lucky that we get to work with him at First Five in a number of capacities around early child care and early childhood development and equity, racism, all these wonderful things that Vince is expert in. So glad that you're here today, Vince, and so glad all of you are here with us today. And I'll go ahead and send it over to Vince and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. I think as Leah mentioned earlier, we'll be doing breakout rooms, and there'll at some point be just dyad, so just 2 of you. Not everybody is always, I think, super comfortable doing that. So I think we are going to offer the option to opt out of breakout rooms if you would like to. So the way to let us know that you would not like to go into the breakout room is to rename your name and put an asterisk first. So hopefully folks know how to do that. You go up to your box and the 3 dots, you click on that and you just rename yourself and you put the asterisks, and that'll allow us to know that you would not like to go into a breakout room, and you'll just stay in the main room with us and we can chat there. So please go ahead and do that. Let's see, what else is there? So we welcome you to just kind of ask questions as they come up. If you're comfortable, you can just put it in your question into the chat. If you are comfortable unmuting yourself, so you can raise your hand and then we can call on you and you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So please just go ahead and ask as the questions come up for you.
And I can,
encourage.
This is Beth. I'll be monitoring the chat, you guys. So if there's questions in the chat, I'll find a spot to ask them to Vince as well. So many ways to get your information.
Yeah, great. And we encourage you to ask lots of questions because usually that is when the best learning is happening. So please ask away. Just a really quick little bit about myself. Like, as Beth mentioned, I've been in early childhood field for, it's going to be almost 25 years, I think. And I started as a preschool teacher, really as a substitute in preschool. And I was probably directly working with children and families for 7 years. And then I went and worked at a what's called a Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, which is called 4Cs of Alameda County. And I was there for, I don't know, over 10 years. Then I was a manager of like a home visiting program at Brighter Beginnings. And now I've been at First Five for a little over 5 years. And so I've been training on the ASQ for about 5 years now. Usually this training is 3 hours. But we, we just don't think that being in front of a computer for 3 hours is going to be a really great way to learn. So we've cut it down to 2. So that means that we're going to be moving pretty quickly, and that there's some things that we've spent time on in the past when we had the luxury of being in person, we won't be able to do. So what we're also doing is we're offering what we're calling like an office hours, which will be, I think, in 2 weeks on November 12th. So you should get like an invitation to register for that. But basically it'll be like an hour, and whoever wants to show up can just show up and ask any kinds of questions, or we can go a little deeper in some ways that you feel like you need. So, feel free to show up for office hours in a couple weeks. There's things like scoring and other kinds of stuff that we will not really get really deep into. So those are the kinds of things. Let's see. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. Any questions before we get started? I'll share my screen.
No.
Okay. Great. Okay, so this is something actually that I learned a little bit more recently, and I thought this image was really good because this was like an image from an article about how to get children into their learning brain. So, over the last few years, we've learned a lot about how our brains work, and we've always made the assumption that just because people are showing up, that their brain is ready and in that place to learn. But it really takes these sort of pre-steps before you can actually get your brain into the learning brain. So that we're gonna do a couple exercises before we get actually into the actual training today. So this image shows that number one, the basic thing that your brain needs to feel is to be feeling physically safe and emotionally calm and settled. So we're going to do some activities to take care of what they call your reptilian brain or your hindbrain. And then in step 2, you then need to feel like you're related to others. So as mammals, we have like emotions. And so you need to be able to feel connected to people. So we're going to do a little exercise to help you kind of connect with one another for a little bit. And then we can reach the part 3, which is our learning brain. So we're able to then have reason. We are feeling ready and able to do, to take in information and learn something new. Okay, so hopefully this is actually something new that I'm trying, and so hopefully this works for folks. Okay. All right, so let's get regulated here. We're gonna do a little bit of moving and breathing. So I invite those of you that are able and willing or wanting to stand up. Just go ahead and stand up if you can. If not, then you're welcome to just sit down. So I welcome you to just kind of stand up and just kind of take some steps like marching. Just start marching up and down, up and down. Yep. And if you're just sitting, you can just move your arms. All right. So move your arms up and down, up and down. We'll do this for about 30 seconds. Invite you to go a little faster, quicker, get our heartbeat going. Okay, you can raise your arms up high, raise your arms down low. Keep doing that up and down, up and down. Keep going. Yep, thanks, Beth. I like that movement more. All right. All right, let's make it faster. March faster, quicker, quicker. Whew. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Okay, so now I invite you to, if you want to keep standing, you want to sit, that's fine. We're going to do some breathing now. Okay, we're going to do, let's do 5 deep breaths. And we'll breathe in for 5 seconds, and then we'll blow out for 5 seconds. Okay, here we go. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4.
And we're excited to have Vince here today. Vince has been working in early childhood for over 20 years, and I'm lucky. Leah and I are both really lucky that we get to work with him at First 5 in a number of capacities around early child care and early childhood development and equity, racism, all these wonderful things that Vince is expert in. So glad that you're here today, Vince, and so glad all of you are here with us today. And I'll go ahead and send it over to Vince and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. I think as Leah mentioned earlier, we'll be doing breakout rooms, and there'll at some point be just dyads, so just 2 of you. Not everybody is always, I think, super comfortable doing that. So I think we are going to offer the option to opt out of breakout rooms if you would like to. So the way to let us know that you would not like to go into a breakout room is to rename your name and put an asterisk first. So hopefully folks know how to do that. You go up to your box and the 3 dots, you click on that and you just rename yourself and you put the asterisks, and that'll allow us to know that you would not like to go into a breakout room, and you'll just stay in the main room with us and we can chat there. So please go ahead and do that. Let's see, what else is there? So we welcome you to just kind of ask questions as they come up. If you're comfortable, you can just put it in your question into the chat. If you are comfortable unmuting yourself, so you can raise your hand and then we can call on you and you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So please just go ahead and ask as the questions come up for you.
And I can,
we encourage.
This is Beth. I'll be monitoring the chat, you guys. So if there's questions in the chat, I'll find a spot to ask them to Vince as well. So many ways to get your information.
Yeah, great. And we encourage you to ask lots of questions because usually that is when the best learning is happening. So please ask away. Just a really quick little bit about myself. Like as Beth mentioned, I've been in early childhood field for, it's going to be almost 25 years, I think. And I started as a preschool teacher, really as a substitute in preschool. And I was probably directly working with children and families for 7 years. And then I went and worked at a what's called a Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, which is called 4Cs of Alameda County. And I was there for, I don't know, over 10 years. Then I was a manager of like a home visiting program at Brighter Beginnings. And now I've been at First Five for a little over 5 years. And so I've been training on the ASQ for about 5 years now. Usually this training is 3 hours. But we, we just don't think that being in front of a computer for 3 hours is going to be a really great way to learn. So we've cut it down to 2. So that means that we're going to be moving pretty quickly, and that there's some things that we've spent time on in the past when we had the luxury of being in person, we won't be able to do. So what we're also doing is we're offering what we're calling like an office hours, which will be, I think, in 2 weeks on November 12th. So you should get like an invitation to register for that. But basically it'll be like an hour and whoever wants to show up can just show up and ask any kinds of questions, or we can go a little deeper in some ways that you feel like you need. So, feel free to show up for office hours in a couple weeks. There's things like scoring and other kinds of stuff that we will not really get really deep into. So those are the kinds of things. Let's see. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. Any questions before we get started? I'll share my screen.
No.
Okay. Great. Okay, so this is something actually that I learned a little bit more recently, and I thought this image was really good because this was like an image from an article about how to get children into their learning brain. So over the last few years, we've learned a lot about how our brains work, and we've always made the assumption that just because people are showing up, that their brain is ready and in that place to learn. But it really takes these sort of pre-steps before you can actually get your brain into the learning brain. So that we're gonna do a couple exercises before we get actually into the actual training today. So this image shows that number one, the basic thing that your brain needs to feel is to be feeling physically safe and emotionally calm and settled. So we're going to do some activities to take care of what they call your reptilian brain or your hind brain. And then in step 2, you then need to feel like you're related to others. So as mammals, we have like emotions. And so you need to be able to feel connected to people. So we're going to do a little exercise to help you kind of connect with one another for a little bit. And then we can reach the part 3, which is our learning brain. So we're able to then have reason, we're feeling ready and able to do, to take in information and learn something new. Okay, so hopefully this is actually something new that I'm trying, and so hopefully this works for folks. Okay. All right, so let's get regulated here. We're gonna do a little bit of moving and breathing. So I invite those of you that are able and willing or wanting to stand up, just go ahead and stand up if you can. If not, then you're welcome to just sit down. So I welcome you to just kind of stand up and just kind of take some steps like marching. Just start marching up and down, up and down. Yep. And if you're just sitting, you can just move your arms. All right. So move your arms up and down, up and down. We'll do this for about 30 seconds. Invite you to go a little faster, quicker, get our heartbeat going. Okay, you can raise your arms up high, raise your arms down low. Keep doing that up and down, up and down. Keep going. Yep, thanks, Beth. I like that movement more. All right, let's make it faster. March faster, quicker, quicker. Whew. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Okay, so now I invite you to, if you want to keep standing, you want to sit, that's fine. We're going to do some breathing now. Okay, we're going to do, let's do 5 deep breaths, and we'll breathe in for 5 seconds, and then we'll blow out for 5 seconds. Okay, here we go. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And in. 2, 3, 4, 5. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. Welcome me to sit back down. Thank you. Now we're gonna have you relate with one another. Okay, so this is where we're gonna just break you into pairs so you can just chat for like 2 minutes. And we just want you to, here's the question to answer, which is, what do you hope to gain from the training today? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and break you out into pairs. So please, go ahead and click join the breakout room. And it's important that, everybody participates. If you happen to show up in a room and you're by yourself, then please go ahead and just leave the room and you can come back into the main room and we can chat together then. Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and set you up and send you out for 2 minutes to chat. What do you hope to gain from the training today?
Hey, Vince, I wonder
Yes.
if us that are here in the main room, if people want to put in the chat what they
Yeah, great. Yeah, I've seen that already, some folks. So great. Children,
Yeah.
age appropriate development, a better understanding of how ASQ assessments can be administered and techniques used by other organizations to get adequate results. Okay.
Awesome.
Great. I mean, if you want to unmute, you're welcome to unmute and also say if there's anything, how to modify ASQ in the time of COVID. Okay.
That's a really good question.
Sorry, that's me. I'm really interested in just finding out how other people are doing it over video or, outdoor, like just given the needs of our home visiting right now.
Great. There's actually an online version. What I've been hearing is that people have been doing it online during a Zoom, and they are able to use like a link and do it together with their families. And we at First 5 actually, we offer additional supports. So we can offer the online for free to organizations that want to partner with us. And then I and my colleague provides training to organizations on how to use the online system.
Oh, how do we sign up for that, Vincent?
Yeah, so basically just contact me afterwards. So thank you. You actually reminded that maybe I should make this announcement now before, because I usually make it at the end, but I think I'm a little worried we might not get through everything today. So I'll make an announcement when we all come back.
So Vincent, we just contact you if we want our organization to transition to ASQs online, because I know right now the old school way is paper form.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, so we can chat about that. That will be some additional planning and preparation.
Okay.
So we should all we can talk about that, and I think there's some steps, making sure that your directors or supervisors or whoever makes the decisions is on board with it all and understands it. And some people have questions about how it works. So, but yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay. And I put Vince's email address in the chat box. And I think one of the things, if there's a lot of interest, one of the things we've talked about with Vince is having him provide a training on what it means to set up a child development system in your organization. So you really have a system in place for screening and referral.
Yeah. Oh, Beth, it's my full name, Vincent.
Oh, it is. Oops,
yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Looks like we might have just about everybody back.
Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. There were a few of us that were still in the main room, and we also just sort of chatted a little bit about why people are here today, what they hope to get. And one of the questions or comments reminded me that we at First Five actually are able to offer doing the ASQ online. So there are already some folks that are on today with us that are interested in doing it online, because as we all know, during COVID, we are limited in our ability to be in person with folks, and being able to do it virtually or online is something that would be very useful. So what I told the group was that if you are interested in doing it online, I'm not going to be able to show the online version today, but if you're interested in moving your organization online, then please contact me via email. We can set up a time to chat about it. Basically, what some programs have been doing, some home visiting programs especially, they're doing their visits via Zoom. And when having it online, you can actually do the questionnaires with your families via Zoom online using a link in the online version. So if you are interested in doing that, please just email me and we can set up a time to talk it out and plan it out. But it's really very simple, and getting it set up is only a few hours really, and I provide the training to organizations on using the online. And of course now during COVID, it's just a really good way to do it. And there's a lot of other benefits that you hear about later about it.
And I see that there's some ideas in the chat box about additional training around social and emotional development, and being compliant, quote unquote, with COVID-19. So those are great things. And I will also request that you put those ideas in your evaluation as well. And I will make note of those and see what we can do about some of these trainings. It's really helpful for me to know what you're wanting more of. Thank you for that.
Okay. Great. So hopefully now we are feeling safe and regulated. And then that helped give you an opportunity to connect with others. And we'll go ahead and now we'll launch into the training. And as I mentioned earlier, like we'll probably be going pretty quickly today. So it's just, there's always a lot of content to cover. So anyways, ask questions as you need, okay? So today we'll be reviewing the benefits of screening. We'll describe to you the features of the ASQ3. We'll talk about some of the cutoffs and how to interpret the scores a little bit. Some reminders about how to share the results of the ASQs with parents. And people usually have lots of questions about sharing the results and wanting, like, you know, the special way to do it. And the truth is that it's just like anything else, it just takes practice. And so what I always just encourage folks to do is just if you commit to it, and then, you know, and then just start trying to practice sharing the results with, you know, with your families. And if you want to, maybe you can practice with a colleague, but it's really just like trying it and, you know, learning from it, and just practicing it. Okay. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to do some appropriate follow-up and referral. So, and that'll be mostly about connecting to Help Me Grow for the support that Help Me Grow can provide, if you haven't learned or heard about Help Me Grow before. Okay. All right, so what are the ASQs and ASQ SE? So SE is the social emotional tool. It's a second tool, and we'll actually be providing another training on the social emotional tool. I believe it's in December. But basically it's a parent or caregiver tool, a completed tool that encourages parents and caregivers to be involved. So it's a series of questions for children and as young as 1 month of age, all the way up until they're 5.5 years, so 66 months for the ASQ3, and actually up to 72 months for the social emotional one. The tools have been shown to accurately identify children that are at risk for a developmental or social emotional delay. So it's important to the point that at risk is what it says. It does not diagnose children. Okay, so that's important to remember. So it basically says, let's get an expert to let us know what's happening, but it can help us sort of identify children that might need that expert. And then it also is a way to educate us about child development and help to guide what we call developmental promotion. So that's like sort of, we know children at this age should or are likely to have certain skills. And if they don't, then they should be developing them soon. And if they do not develop them soon, then that could be a reason for us to get a little bit concerned about a child's development. Okay. So these are the different domains. So the ASQ3 actually screens for the 5 different domains there. So you can see there's communication, gross motor, fine motor, problem solving, and then personal social. And the personal social are broken up into like 3 different questions around adaptive. So those are like self-help skills. So things like, can they put their shoes on, or do they know how to feed themselves, or can they use the restroom on their own? And then social is, you know, how they interact with other people. And then the social emotional, the SE2, which we will not be talking a whole lot about today, is just 100% about social and emotional development. So it's about children's behavior. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about why it's important for parents to be involved in this. Actually right now, I welcome you to chat anything that might come to mind about why is it important to have parents complete the tool on their children. So if you want to chat something, I welcome you to go ahead and chat that. We'll just give maybe 20 seconds here.
They know their kiddos best, is what someone said. Parents are the experts. That's great.
I don't know why I cannot see the chat box.
Parents are able to see abilities and skills full time, whereas parent educators only see them for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Okay.
And to build relationships with parents and collaborate with them on a child's development. That's awesome.
Great. Yes. So see, you all are experts too. So I think you pretty much named all the things that were listed here. So number one, it really encourages a parent's involvement. It can validate their concerns. So there have, I think to many of us, been too many stories of parents sharing their concerns about their children's development with, often with their pediatricians, often during their well baby checks. And a lot of times, unfortunately, for some reason, like we just don't listen to parents' concerns sometimes. But actually, it's been shown that when a parent has a concern, it's actually a really high indication that there could be something going on. So the tool can help validate a parent's concern. Yep, as people mentioned, it conveys the value and importance of a parent's expertise on their child. So yes, they are the expert on their child. It's an opportunity. This tool also is an opportunity to educate parents a little bit about development. So it gives them some, I think a lot of times it gives them some of the language that we use, like we talk about fine motor, gross motor, communication, and the fact that then they get to answer questions about their children in each of these areas helps to kind of give them some terminology that we use, some of the language, and at the same time, it educates them on some things that that we should expect their child to do, or maybe their child can do, and they just never really even, realize that that was like a skill or something like that. And then the bottom is it bridges communication between caregivers and providers. And so that's a really, really important piece. And in fact, that's probably for me, the number one important aspect of this tool, which it really provides sort of like a beginning opportunity to talk about a child's development between the home, the caregivers, the parents, and you as providers, because it sort of gives you like a neutral place to begin that conversation about a child's development. Okay. All right, so why do we do this, and what is it actually? What is it? Why is it called developmental screening? And so what is it and what is it not? Okay, so it's a really quick tool, and it helps us to identify children that are developing on target or on schedule. And in fact, I think the statistics is like about 90% of the children will actually show up as being on schedule. Okay. It will also help us identify children who might benefit from practice or support in specific areas. So for some children, it's not necessarily a really high concern, but we might be able to identify areas where the child might, like it says there, just need a little more extra practice. And so when we identify that child might need a little more practice, then maybe we are offering that child the opportunity for that. So a good example is, we at some age in general, we expect babies to begin crawling. And if they're not, or if before crawling, they're able to sort of push up or turn over, they're gaining that strength. And a lot of times, actually, we find that firstborn babies, which, we love them up so much, oftentimes are being held a lot. And maybe they're not be given the opportunity as much to sort of practice or developing their muscle skills. Like that's why we always encourage tummy time for babies, right? That's actually the time for them to have free exploration. It's a time for them to be exercising those muscles and developing some of these skills. But if we're loving our babies so much, we're holding them all the time, and some babies just don't like being on the ground and they cry a lot. And then as caregivers or parents, it's hard for us to see our babies cry, so we pick them up and hold them a lot. But anyways, that's just an example of how if a baby is just being held a lot, maybe they're not able to practice some of those muscle skills that we want them to. So what else does this do? It helps us identify children. So here's the important piece: at risk for developmental delays, and those that should be referred for further evaluation. So getting that expert to look at the child and help us understand if there is something more that's happening with this child. So it helps us answer this question: does this child need an in-depth assessment? Okay. So why do we do this? So this image here shows us that, like, you know, it's very, from our eyes, from our observation, we can, you know, it's very easy to clearly see children or identify children that are sort of typically developing. And then it's also pretty clear and easy to identify children that are atypically developing, okay? So here it is, right? Clearly typical, it's very easy to see. Clearly atypical, you know, those ones we can see too. But what it's saying is that our eyes are not always super sensitive. So there are some children that will be underdetected. And if you think about children's development, or children on like I don't know if like a spectrum would be a good idea, but like on a line of development. So right on some side of the line, we're gonna see a lot of children that are typically developing. Along that line, there might be children that have some minor delays, right? And then we get to other side of the spectrum, is that we'll see children that might not be typically developing. We'll see that. But what about the children in between that just need a little bit of practice? So that can also help identify those children that need that as well.
And someone is asking about, someone says, why do parents have a hard time identifying their children's development? It's an interesting question.
Yes, it is an interesting question. So thank you for asking that. And I think this comes up often, which is we often believe that as providers, we want the best for their children. And so what we believe when parents are sort of in that, what we use the term denial phase a lot, right? So we believe that parents are in denial. And why is it hard for them to do that? And I've, in the past few years, actually learned something different about denial, about parents. And I think it really does shift how you think about this, which is that denial is a way for parents to protect themselves. If you can imagine, it's you know, your child, or you know, their child is like their most precious item. And to hear negative or believe negative things about your child is extremely hurtful. And so denial is, the way I learned about it, is really a way that parents use something to protect themselves from something that would be extremely emotionally hard to accept. And so what we have to do as providers is we have to respect that. And we have to, in some ways, kind of give the family and parents enough time to get through this phase. And so what we talk about a lot in our Help Me Grow program as our staff is that, like, families go through what we call like sort of a journey in this way. And so like, and everybody's journey is quicker or slower. They take their own pace. Some people get over this denial quicker, some don't. But our job as service providers and supports for families is to respect that they need their time to get through that. And in the end, ultimately, they will. Either they'll get through that quicker and then we can get the supports. And this is another reason why I think we as providers, like, we worry, like, why, you know, come on, parents, get on board. Like, can't you see this? Like, we want the best for your child. You know, we know that the earlier we support your child with additional, you know, supports, the better for your child. We're early childhood people. We know that, like, you know, development at the young age is so, so important. So like, hurry up, parents, let's go. But, you know, again, it's like, it's that pace that they are. And so like, really our job, again, respectful of them, let them know that we're here to talk about it. What we know that really helps with families and parents over time is that you really work that relationship. You work that relationship to develop that trust with that family. And once you develop that trust over time, and the family can really see that it's true, you really do want the best for me and my child, then they're more likely to sort of act sooner about getting support for their child. So anyways, hopefully that might shift a little bit some of your thinking about when we're like, wow, you know, why is this parent being in denial? Why is this parent not able to see that? So anyways, that's how I think
Yeah,
about it.
there's some nice conversations happening, just so you know.
Oh, in the chat. Okay.
Someone mentioning that as a parent, they knew something was wrong with their child and had hoped that their child would be quote unquote normal.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually being able to take in the idea that their child is learning at their own pace and are a blessing. So it really is that balancing act. That's awesome the way you described that, Vince. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everybody. So hopefully that just shifts a little bit, like shifting our sort of our view on this. And again, it's like, we want the best, you know, come on, you know, we want the best for your child and you. And so anyways, it's sort of that impatience. So we have to just develop that impatience. We develop more patience with ourselves for families. Okay, and just some reminders here again, screening doesn't diagnose delays or disabilities. We're not diagnosing children. And then screening, it doesn't identify specific goals either or skills to target, but only information on general areas of development. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, so let's get into the features. Okay, so just some quick features about it. There's 21 different questionnaire intervals. So we said it starts as for children as young as 1 month of age. And you can see all the different intervals there. So, you know, those are the intervals about the ages of the children and which questionnaire we should be giving to the families. Because as we know, like as children get older, they develop different skills and have different skills that we would expect them to be able to do. And as you see, like as it gets older, they space out those intervals a little bit more because we know that babies develop really quickly when they're young and they're learning a lot of different new skills. And then as they get older, it's just kind of, it slows down a little bit, some of the skills that we're observing. Okay. You can read some of those recommendations at the bottom, but I think they're saying that the 9-month is used in a medical setting. If you want to use this to monitor children's development, so you can use it every 4 to 6 months. And then if you're more worried about a child's development, you might do it more frequently. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me here, you can go ahead and pull out this handout if you have it, or you can pull it up. This is sort of an example of a questionnaire that we're going to be going through today, and it's already kind of been filled out, and it's the child's name is Andrew. So if you want to, I think we'll put the link in there, and I think people got also the link to the Google Drive where you have access to all the handouts today. But basically, we're just going to go through this a little bit now just to introduce you to that. So you can see that that it's right here. This is the 16-month questionnaire. And you can see that there's an age range. So it's important to notice that. So you can see that it says 15 months, 0 days through 16 months and 30 days. So you can see that it's very specific about their age. So it's really important that we choose the right questionnaire when we're giving it to the family to complete on their child. And you can see it's very specific up to even the day. Anyways, notice that part of it. There are 5 different, as I mentioned earlier, there's 5 different developmental areas. And then there's going to be 6 questions in each area. So there's 30 questions total that parents will be answering. And they can respond to the questions as yes, sometimes, or not yet. And it's, you can see there, it's set at a 4th to 6th grade reading level. Okay. This is kind of an important thing to know also, which is the questions are actually ordered in hierarchical order. So what that means is questions 1 and 2 are sort of the easier questions. And then questions 5 and 6 are intended to be the more sort of advanced or harder skills for children to do. But just because a child can do 5 and 6 doesn't mean that they're advanced. Okay, so that's kind of important. 5 and 6 are actually skills that we expect children who are typically developing to be able to do. So for this example, this 16-month questionnaire, the questions 5 and 6 are skills that we expect a 16-month to be able to do. And questions 1 and 2 actually are skills that we expect a younger child to be able to do. So for example, in this questionnaire, 1 and 2 are actually skills that we start seeing children that are like 12 months of age being able to do. I see there's some chats. Is there anything important here?
Yes, someone asked about why thought that what you said, Vince, was that the 9 month can only be used in the medical setting. And I just replied that it can be used by anyone, but it is often the screen that is used in medical settings.
Yep, exactly. And I actually don't understand why exactly the 9 month is like that. I think maybe it's because they wanted to coincide with the well baby check frequency. It's like you see your pediatrician when their baby is like 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and then you go and see your pediatrician at 9 months. And I don't think so. I don't think there's like an 8-month well check, but there's a 9 month, and I believe that's why they created the 9 months, so that they can have that 9 month check.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my understanding as well.
Great. Thank you for that question. Okay. So I'm going to speed us along a little bit because I know we got other stuff to get to. Okay. So then there are also some unscored sections. Okay. So if you look actually in the back, there's a section called overall section. And it looks at, different qualities of skills. So for example, like the first question in the overall here is, do you think your child hears well? So, or the second question is, do you think your child talks like other toddlers his age? And those are just yes, no questions, or yes, no, and you can answer it yes, no. And then there's a section for them to write in some comments. So these are actually some very important sections to review actually when doing these questionnaires, because you can imagine it's like if you're asking a parent, like, do you think your child hears well? And they say no, then that might be something we need to explore or talk about. Or do you think your child talks like other toddlers his age? And they say no, then that's another thing. And here it is again, the bullet point there, that parents' concerns are very predictive. So again, when parents are sharing their concerns on their children, we know that it's not easy, again, for parents to share concerns about their children. So if they are, it really means that we should pay much more closer attention to those concerns. Okay, and it says any concerns of questionable response require follow-up. Okay, let's see. So each interval has their unique summary sheet. Okay, so the summary sheet looks like this. It has this chart and it's filled out, and we'll be doing a little bit of an activity with it later. Okay, and there's 5 different sections. So there's just a section on the child families information at the top. There's the bar with the cutoffs. So that's this part right here. That's the chart with the cutoffs. Then there's a place to look at some of the overall sections. So this is a way to basically bring information from the questionnaire over to summarize everything. So that's why we call it the summary sheet. Then there's a section to document how you're going to follow up. What are some of the follow-up actions? And then there's a section to bring over their responses if you want them to have that. So again, that's the summary sheet. Okay, so now we're going to have you do a little bit of an activity again. This is going to be, again, it's going to be a dyad, so 2 of you will work together. Okay, so this is the sheet that you will need. It is called Introducing the ASQ3 to Caregivers activity. So if you want to go ahead and pull that out or click on the link to open it up. what we're gonna do is when we break you out, we're gonna give you maybe like 2 minutes or so to sort of read through the activity to get the background. And then one of you is going to be role play like the parent, and the other person will role play as the provider, service provider. And the service provider is going to be sort of practicing introducing the questionnaire to the parent. And the parent, your role would be to sort of ask some sort of reasonable questions of your provider. Don't be too difficult of a parent, but ask some questions like so that you might be pretending like what would a parent want to know if a provider was asking you to complete this questionnaire. Okay, so go ahead and pull that up so that you can have a chance to start reading it. And then I think we're going to set you up to break you out into pairs again. And so those of you that won't go into the pairs and just stay in the main room, then you know, we can maybe talk a little bit about it. We can chat about it or talk a little bit. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and break you out. Okay. Are you ready, Beth?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Vince.
Thank you for meeting with me today.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I wanted you to know that one of the services or offerings we have at our program is to have parents complete a questionnaire on their child. This questionnaire is called the Ages and Stages questionnaire.
Okay.
And this questionnaire sort of, it asks you questions about different skills that your child would be able to do. There's fairly simple questions. It's about 30 questions that you'll complete on your child, and it will ask you questions about different areas of development that your child is developing at this age. And so there's 5 different domains, we call them.
Okay.
So it's like, it'll be looking at your child's like communication skills, their gross motor and fine motor. So their gross motor is like their big muscle skills. So like running and jumping and throwing or kicking.
Right. Well, he uses a lot of those.
It's good. And the fine motor is more about the muscles in your hands. So yeah,
Okay,
like
kinda
so
drawing.
like if you know they feed or draw or
Okay.
are able to pick up items with their hands. These are skills like that eventually will lead to your baby being able to write, actually holding a pencil and things like that.
Okay, cool.
It'll ask some questions about their problem solving skills. And then some things called personal social. So personal social are things like, can your child do things to help himself? Like if it's like, if you remember as a baby, like your baby maybe wasn't able to hold their bottle before, but at some point your baby learned how to hold the bottle for themselves.
Right.
So that's kind of like a self-help skill.
Okay.
And then some social skills are things like how your baby interacts with you.
Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, when we talk to each other, we generally look at each other. But, you know, so things like that around their social skills, or if they need something, they'll learn how to call you and stuff.
Cool.
Okay. And then, so the way that you're going to answer these questions, there's 3 choices. So you can answer yes, your child does this skill. Sometimes you've seen your child do this skill, or not yet. You haven't seen your child do that skill.
All right.
Okay. And then at the very end, there'll be what is called an overall section. And so it'll just be yes and no questions.
Okay.
And then it's also a place where you can let us know, give us some comments about some of those questions.
Okay.
Okay. So
Sounds
do you have
good.
any questions about the question?
Well, is it like gonna tell me if my child has like something wrong with them, or like, you know, I mean, is that what this is? Will this like something I have to go to the doctor with or something?
Well, that's a really good question. So it's not intended to let us know if if there's something wrong. I don't think we would ever want to say like that there's something wrong about your baby, honestly.
Okay.
But it can let us know if it will let us know, you know, some of these areas of development where your baby is like on target. So like a lot of things that your baby is just, you know, typically learning and growing and things that we expect your baby to be doing. And then maybe it'll also show us some areas where, oh, maybe your baby needs a little more practice with that. So for example, like I think, I don't know if you remember, maybe your baby was crawling and she was crawling like at a later age. And maybe she was crawling later because she needed more time to like just be on the floor and practice moving around and developing her muscles. And it was just taking a little time for her muscles to develop so that she could crawl. And so if it shows us something like that, maybe we might encourage you to give your baby more time to practice or develop her muscles or things like that. Does that?
I see. Yeah,
okay?
yeah, that helps a lot.
And you know, and maybe there are some areas that you've been wondering about with your baby's development. And if there is some questions about it, maybe we might have you go to your doctor and talk about some things, because you know, your doctor is, you know, the health professional, and they might be able to be the ones that like can test for some things that we don't normally test here in our program. Like, you know how like they test their hearing at a certain age, or they'll do some vision tests with them, or they, and of course, I'm sure you know that they weigh your baby and like take their height and all that kind of stuff. So they do all that because there's a reason that we expect children to be growing at a certain pace, or they get a certain weight, they're gaining weight and they're growing. So that's actually, so that might be some of the things that we might have you talk to your doctor about.
Cool. I could take, like, could I take like what you find to my pediatrician the next time I go?
Absolutely. Yeah. We can give you a copy of the results and everything like that.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Great. So it's only probably like take you 15 or 20 minutes to complete the questionnaire.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome. And cut.
All right. So first of all, a little apologies for to some of those. I think in the chat we saw that.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, and that I think I didn't make it super clear that we wanted you to pull out the specific activity. There's actually an activity, so it wasn't the ASQ form, but it was actually this activity. So I apologize to those if it wasn't clear which we were doing. And then I guess I just welcome any chat comments from folks if you want to just talk a little bit about how that was, either being the parent or the caregiver. Hopefully just gave you some opportunity to like just practice a little bit about like how to talk to families about this, because you will encounter some families that may be a little fearful of the questionnaire. They might be a little resistant to wanting to complete it. And I think as we talked about earlier, like, you know, our role really is also to make sure that we are respectful of families. If they choose to not do this, then they have that right. So anyways.
Yeah, some people are having some trouble opening the document. Let me ask Leah. Let me see if I can get some help from Leah on the document and how to make sure everyone can have access to it, because it doesn't seem to be open.
Oh, okay.
So in the meantime, we can look at the, if people have any comments. Vince and I did a little role play that was very fun. Yeah, someone's making a comment about supporting families that are multilingual, engaging around the ASQ. See, and someone said, yeah, you never want to offend parents. So that's really good. And still people are having a hard time opening it. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and push us along.
Yes.
All right, I just put in a new link, see if that works.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay, so I think as I was talking about earlier, you'll remember that it's very important to get the right questionnaire picked out. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the most important thing is, again, it needs to be picked out correctly. So you have to calculate a child's age in months and in days. And if the child was born premature by more than 3 weeks, you will need to adjust for their age by subtracting from their age the weeks that they were premature. So I guess the idea is that a child that is born premature by more than 3 weeks may have missed out on some of that development that they would have gotten while still being in mom's tummy that time. And so we have to adjust for that, but we only adjust for that when the child is under 24 months of age. Okay, so you don't have to adjust for prematurity when the child is over 24 months of age. And because we're not going to spend a lot of time on actually learning how to calculate the ages here, there is a very handy dandy ASQ age calculator. So if you go to this website, www.agesandstages.com, and I'll go ahead and click on it real quickly so you can see. It takes you to this page. There's lots of different resources and information about the Ages and Stages questionnaire here. And then this is where, if you scroll down a little bit, you will see that this is the ASQ calculator. So you can just click on it. And basically what happens is you'll just fill in this information. So administration date is the date that you're going to give it. So if it was today, you would select today, the child's date of birth, and if they were premature, and you hit calculate. And then that will go ahead and give you the correct one. And I think I was mentioning earlier that that ASQ Online is available for folks to use during this time. And so the online version does all the calculations for you. So you just put in the birth date, it knows that you're doing it that day, and it automatically selects the correct questionnaire for you. So you don't have to worry about any of this math or calculations. And then when we get into scoring the ASQ in a little bit, just also know that the online version also does all the scoring for you, okay? Okay, so here's scoring. So when you're getting ready to score, you're gonna review all the responses. You do your best to have them complete all the questions, but they are allowed to skip some of the questions. However, if they do skip some of the questions, then there is some math that you have to do in order to add everything up. And we're not gonna have time to do that today too, because that takes a little bit of time, and we're gonna skip that. But basically, if they skipped a question, you still have to give that question some kind of numerical value. And the way to do that is you add up all the questions that they completed, and then you divide by the number that they completed. So let's say they completed 4, and all 4 of them they answered them 10, and it totaled 40. So you divide 40 by 4, and your average is 10. And so the 2 questions that they didn't complete also get a value of 10. So that's just really quick. And something we can go over in the office hours if you need to understand a little bit more, okay? But in general, it's best if we can get them to complete all the questions. So every yes answer you see there can get a 10, every sometimes gets 5, and every not yet gets 0, okay? And then I think I was just talking about step 3, which if there's questions that were not answered, then you have to actually calculate them, okay? Okay, so then now this is the benefits of ASQ Online for our virtual world. So ASQ Online, I think I was just telling you earlier, it correctly selects the questionnaire to use at the time. It does automatic scoring. So if they answer all the questions, it'll score it. If they skip a few of the questions, it will do that average scoring for you, and it will score it up. Of course, it's paperless and 100% electronic, so you won't have to calculate the birthday and then go and print the correct questionnaire and then give it to the parents to complete, and then get it back and then calculate all that. So you won't have to worry about any of that. And then there's some nice reporting about the questionnaires also. So like if you have a group of children that you work with, you can actually produce reports that will show all your children's results, all like a nice little chart. And then every child has what they call a profile. So you can keep all of their completed questionnaires all together with that child's profile. So over the years that you work with that child or family, you'll be able to track sort of the history of the questionnaires that you had completed. And then, and then the benefit that we talked about is that you can use this during your virtual meetings. So we're not going to be doing the scoring exercise today, but you were given, the questionnaire, Andrew's questionnaire that was completed. So what I would just say, encourage you to do, if you've never done this before, is to go ahead and just go back and score it. So you'll see like some of the pages, like there is, oops, what am I doing here? You'll see some of the pages that the X's were marked. So if they marked yes, give those 10. If they mark sometimes, give those a 5. And then write the answer on the side on that line there. There's a blank line. And then that allows you to score all of them up. So remember that there are 6 questions in each domain. And so that means the maximum or the maximum total they can score in each of those sections will be 60. And then, you want to add those up for each of the sections. And then what eventually will happen is that you will bring them back over to this scoring sheet. So we'll talk a little bit more about this scoring sheet in a little bit, but you'll bring the answers over into this scoring sheet and you can see there the X's fall in different areas on this chart. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the different areas in this chart. So that's the idea. So that's a little practice if you'd like to do that after today, is to go back and go ahead and score it. Okay.
Someone's asking Vince about the ASQ online version, if it's free or what the cost is.
Yes. So in general, at First Five, if you become a partner with us, there is no fee because we cover the fee at First Five. There are some organizations who want to purchase it themselves, so there are definitely some fees with that. There's some licensing fees. I can't tell you exactly. I think it's like annually, it might be like $600 for the initial license. And then they charge you another 50 cents per screen that is completed. So those are just some general costs. But yes, if you're interested in using ASQ Online after today, please email me and we can set up a time to talk a little bit more about it. But in general, at First Five, we've been able to offer it to many of our community partners to do this for free. And again, I can provide the training and help you get set up with all of that. Okay. Thank you for the question.
Great.
Okay. All right. So again, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the summary sheet here. So this is the same summary sheet that I was just showing you, where everything is answered and marked in. So what we want to talk about is this chart here. Okay, so you can see there's areas that are dark, there's areas that are gray, and then there's areas that I consider like in the clear area. So you can see that some of these X's fall in the clear area. So the higher numbers like 50 or the 54 there, those are in the clear area. And so that basically is what they call the no concern area, okay? Then you can see that there are some that fall in sort of like the gray area. So they call that monitoring, all right? And then there's no scores here that fall in the dark areas, but those would be the concerned areas. So what that means is that if there are scores in monitoring or concern zones, you know, we may want to explore looking deeper into the child's development. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have, you know, we have to be really concerned or there's a really red flag here, but it just means we should then be exploring it further. And if you have multiple scores, like we have here in Andrew, that are in like either the monitoring or the concern zone, then that really is something to kind of like raise our concern level a little bit more, because I think, as I mentioned earlier, probably closer to 90% of your children will not have concerns, or they might have, you know, have a score, like one score in monitoring or something like that. So if you have multiple scores in some of these potentially concern areas, and those are the ones to sort of pay attention closer to, okay? So that's the chart there. So please, it's kind of important to feel comfortable with that. So remember, the clear zone is the no concern. The gray zone is the monitoring area, and then the darker zone is the concern area. So if you have questions about that, please go ahead and chat that. Next, we'll move to the section 2 here, which are the responses to the overall section. So you can see there, that's like, do you think your child hears well? Do you think they talk like others? And we want now, if we look at this example, we look a little closer on number 1, right there, you can see right away, the caregiver answered that question no, and has a comment there that says, ignores me. And number 2, the question around talking like other toddlers his age, they also answered no. And there's another comment here that says not many words. Okay, so I think, yep, go ahead.
Sorry, Vince, there's a question about what is the cutoff. So I think people are, it seems like this question might mean.
Oh, yes, thank you for that question. So, okay, great, thank you for that. So the cutoff there, you see the numbers. I think if we look at communication, we see cutoff is 16.81. Our gross motor there is 37.91. So the developers of the Ages and Stages questionnaire, you know, did a lot of research on children's development in creating this. And what they found, what they determined these cutoffs were some of these averages of the scores. And the cutoff actually is, it gets very technical because they use statistics to determine this cutoffs. But the cutoffs are what they call 2 standard deviations away from what we typically expect children to be at, okay? So 1 standard deviation away from what we expect children to be at statistically puts them into the monitoring or gray zone. If they're 2 standard deviations away from what we typically expect children's development to be at, then that puts them into the concern zone. And so you can see why, well, you can see that there's different numbers there in the cutoff areas. And that's really because through their research and through using statistics, they determined these cutoffs in each of the different areas. So for example, here for a 16-month-old, you know, the cutoff is kind of pretty low there. So they're saying like, you know, the child is going to be scoring fairly low, down all the way to 16.81 in communication at this age. However, when it looks at gross motor, it's kind of a higher cutoff. So that means that 16-month-olds with their gross motor are tending to be able to do a lot of these skills. So they tend to score higher. And these are some skills that we really expect them to be able to see and score high in. And so that's why they have a higher cutoff. So anyways, it gets very technical, and hopefully that answers or gives a beginning of an answer to a question or answer to your question. If you want to talk about that in office hours, please feel free to show up in a couple weeks and we can talk a little bit more about cutoffs. So hopefully that answers that. Okay, any other questions, Beth?
Yeah, there's a question that says, if a child is advanced in their communication, in talking, would that be considered a yes or a no on number 2? So if the toddler talks like, yeah.
Very good question. Thank you for asking that. So there have been times where I've seen parents answer number 2 is like, talks like other toddlers his age, and they actually answer no, right? So initially, if you see a no, you might be like, oh, you might get a concern. But then the comment says, oh yeah, no, my toddler talks more like a 4-year-old, or my toddler talks, much more advanced than others. So, I think once you read that comment, then you're like, oh, okay, I'm not concerned anymore. So just remember that this questionnaire is not trying to show if babies are advanced, even though like most parents, like when they see that their child scores pretty high on it, they're probably thinking like, oh yeah, my baby's advanced. It's not intended to let us know if children are advanced. It's really just intended to let us know if children are on target and doing and having skills that we typically expect them to have at that age. Okay. Yeah, so thank you for that question. That's a great question. That comes up sometimes too. Anything else, Beth?
The only thing wondering about, I mean, this is so great. I think this is a great opportunity. And we have about 40 minutes left, I think. I just wanting to make sure that we can also perhaps do a part 2 if we need to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to move along. So here's another section about the summary just to talk about. So in section 3 there, you can see just basically it's the same thing I just told you about. So if they're above the cutoff, then they're on schedule and they're in the no concern zone. If they're in the gray area, they're close to the cutoff and they're what is called the monitoring zone. And it tells you what you might do here is provide some activities and then monitor. So monitor meaning you might do the questionnaire in 2 to 3 more months or 3 or 4 more months later, just to have an opportunity to track the child's development. And then if they score in the dark area here, they're saying it's below the cutoff, and they're actually recommending further assessment with a professional. So the developers of this tool want to make it sort of clear and simple to know what you should do with all the results. But actually, I'm here to tell you today that it's not always that clear. There is a lot of nuance or judgment that we have to make when looking at the scores. And these are the kinds of things that I think you learn over time. And I would just say that if you don't feel comfortable sometimes with your judgments about this interpretation, then it's okay to make your judgment on the more cautious side. So if there is a score in the concern area and you feel like you're sharing some concerns about the child's development, then we should definitely try to make a connection or a referral. But don't try to be, that professional that's going to be trying to diagnose, but just saying like, it could be things like, they did score in the concern area. And, I'm wondering if you might be a little concerned about this, or I'm wondering how you're feeling about this, mom or dad. Should we go ahead and connect you with somebody else that might be more of an expert on children's development to let us know if something's going on? So that's just an example of how you might have to interpret this. And again, it's something that like you learn with practice over time. Some of us have a little bit more of a background in children's development, so we might be able to feel more confident in making some of these judgments. But I will tell you a little bit about our Help Me Grow program at the end, which can be sort of your backup, which is like if you just don't know, but you do want somebody else to that might have that child development background, you might just go ahead and call and connect with one of our child development specialists and just kind of talk it through to see what might be the most appropriate follow-up. So we don't want to put you out there on your own to feel like, oh, now I have to make my own judgments on all of this. We do have support for that if needed. And so we'll get to that at the end to talk a little bit more about Help Me Grow, okay? Okay, so, and then number 4 is follow-up action taken. So this is just some programs you're required to track what you do with the results. So this can be a place for you actually to document what you do with this. And so it gives you a bunch of different options there. You can see like, we've talked a little bit earlier, is like, oh, let's give them some activities and then we're going to rescreen them in a couple months, or let's have the parent take this results and talk to their pediatrician or healthcare provider. Maybe there's some things around hearing and vision that we might feel like is needed. And this actually, in this example earlier, we saw that we're starting to see some signs that maybe this child does need a connection to a hearing screening, because there's something happening with the communication. He doesn't have the words. I think the parent said something about he ignores me. So anyways, you might be referring for a hearing screening. And then you can see some of the other choices. And then maybe there's also no further action taken at this time, which is probably the most popular choice, because again, children will likely score more in the no concern areas and they'll be just typically developing. Okay. And then section 5 there is just a way for you to bring the answers that they filled out from each of the sections over. So you can just summarize all of them if you want to do that. These are some of these sections of the summary sheet are really just optional. And again, the online version just does all of this for you automatically, including bringing over the comments and things like that. Okay, so let's keep moving. All right, so I think I talked a lot about this, right? So we're scoring it, we're trying to think about interpretation, and then we're gonna be thinking about the follow-up, okay? So I talked about the scores. We talked a little bit about the overall responses and some possible parent concerns. So we want to think like what other factors may impact a child's screening results. So sometimes we need to and I'm just going to give some quick examples here, is children sometimes they behave differently at home than they behave in other environments, like maybe in a preschool classroom or in a different setting, or maybe in your office settings. So just know that sometimes the place where you do it, children may feel most comfortable or may not be totally comfortable. So that can impact some of the things that we'll see a child doing. But in general, the best way to do these questionnaires or observation of their behavior is, of course, in their most natural and most comfortable environment. If a child happens to be tired or hungry at the time that you're trying to do this questionnaire, that would definitely could impact it. Or maybe if they're having a cold and they're sick. Anyways, just making sure that we think about other factors that may impact some of the results at the time. And so I think hopefully you're starting to see the picture of like, yes, these developers wanted to make it very clear cut about how to look at the results, like on the chart here. But we have to be a little cautious not to jump to conclusions too quickly. So we kind of have to think a little bit more about what's really happening with this child and understanding the child and the family sort of as a whole picture when thinking about the results. Okay. So here are some just general recommendations for follow-up, right? So if they're calling this above the monitoring zone. So that's the area that I called the no concern. So if all the scores are in the no concern area, this is some general recommendations. You might provide some follow-up activities, and you might do this in 4 to 6 months. A lot of programs that I work with that are preschool programs, they just do it once a year. So it's not always necessary to do it that often, but it's just a choice that programs have. You know, once you have the questionnaires, you know, you basically can choose how often you want to do it. And then some programs are required, like Head Start programs, or maybe even home visiting programs. They're actually required to do it so many times a year. So again, sometimes it's program driven, and sometimes it's just your own decision driven on how often you're going to do it. If they have scores in the monitoring zone, so I think I was mentioning that these scores are between 1 to 2 standard deviations away from the average. So you might provide some activities. And in fact, most families might want activities to do. And so actually, activities is another thing that the developers of the ASQs have created. So they have some nice, what we call activity sheets that you can share. I don't have them here today, but I can have them available at our office hours. And then I think we could also send out like a link as a follow-up to folks with some activities, but they're available there. They also in general are for purchase from the developers of the ASQ. And then if you use ASQ Online, that's something else that we also give to you, and it's nice and handy and dandy and easy to find in ASQ Online in their documents section. So these are different activities that families can try to do with their children at home. And then these activity sheets actually are broken out into each different domain of development. So like communication has their own activity sheet, gross motor has its own activity sheet, and so on. Okay. Another thing you might do, is there something you wanted to say, Beth?
Yeah, there was just one question, a good question about youth in foster care, and the young children in foster care and in new placements may not score accurately on the ASQ, and also mentioned about and they might see some of those attachment related things in the SE, more so than the ASQ. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, that's one.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. That's another wonderful example of how we have to take in the whole picture of what we know is going on. A young child who has recently been assigned in a foster care situation, I mean, that child has likely already been through a lot if they're in that situation. And so again, like they could be with new people, completely in a new environment. And again, it's going to take some time for them to have some adjustment. So that could impact the way that their scores show up, or show up in their skills. And we know that when children have been through some sort of traumatic events or very stressful events in their lives, they often do regress some in their development. And so that might show up in their scores. It doesn't mean that we should ignore some of these because of this placement or situation. It just means that we need to consider that and in the whole picture and how we're going to think about the child's development, and then how we want to provide the support to that child and then that family. Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
One other question was if the ASQ3 questionnaire is on Epic, and I'm thinking that must be the system, the medical system. Somebody.
Yeah, I think I've heard about Epic, and from what I know and heard, it doesn't exist in Epic, but when you I think they're working on how to be able to transfer somehow the scores into their electronic medical record. And then I think at minimum, if you use the online version, you can actually download like into a PDF, like the summary sheet or the entire questionnaire if you need to.
Yeah, and you know, our someone is responding who knows this, and they
oh
say
great
on Epic, but it would not really be available in Epic. But if you use Exchange, which is where I used to use it, it's on Exchange, and I believe it's still there.
Right. Yes, it's still there in Exchange. So yeah, there are systems, like I think we, in general, the systems are not talking with one another right now, but there's the ability to download the information and then like to upload it individually for children. And then there definitely are some like pediatric practices that are doing this now, actually. Okay, so if they're in the monitor, let's keep going with the monitoring zone. So if they're in the monitoring zone, you might want to rescreen, you know, in 2 months in just that area of concern. If you do it online, you're not able to do just one area of development, so you would have to have them complete the questionnaire again. And then you might make an appropriate referral. So if in the monitoring zone may need a referral, maybe it's like they're concerned about speech and it's just in the monitoring zone, but when you talk to the parents, like they're also been worried about it. So, you know, if parents are worried and there's a little monitoring area and communication, then let's go ahead and make a referral. Okay, so moving on. So below the cutoff, so we're talking about the dark zone. So that means there are 2 standard deviations away. So like I was mentioning earlier, and they're recommending you refer for further assessment. And so I think you heard me say, well, wait, hold on, you know, don't try to panic yet, but like, let's kind of think about it some more. And if you need additional people to think about the results, you know, you could always call our Help Me Grow phone line that I'll explain and talk about in a little bit. Or you might just rescreen, you might just monitor it and watch it and then rescreen. Okay. And then I talked a lot about parent concerns, and we want to respond to all concerns and refer them if necessary. Okay, let's keep moving on. So here's just an example of what might have been happened with in Andrew's case there. So, right, you might choose to provide activities and then rescreen in a couple months. You might share the information with the pediatrician, and you might refer for screening. Okay, so sometimes, so that we were talking about you might take this information to the child's doctor or pediatrician, and they can go ahead and do some of the health stuff that they are the experts in. And at that point, they might even be able to refer to see if and determine if the child is eligible for other services or supports. If you know, if there really are concerns, that means we're getting that expert in to help us look at this child's development and help us determine if they do qualify for these supports. Okay. Okay, so quickly about discussing results, because I think this is also an important piece here. I'm gonna probably run through this pretty quickly because I want to make sure we get to the opportunity for you to do the Andrew family study, and then also to get Help Me Grow information, okay? So there's all these things that probably you all know when you're thinking about talking with families about sensitive information. So it's like you want to think about culturally and, you know, make sure that if there's some language concerns or issues or needs, that you have proper interpretation if you have ability to do that. Make sure that you're just timely, and make sure that you're always making sure that this is confidential for families. So it's really important. So make sure you're finding private places to have these conversations with families. Start by celebrating the child. So that means, I think we've probably all heard this before, which is like, you know, open up with the strengths that you know about this child, the strengths that you know about the family. And sometimes you know, people use like the sandwich thing, which is like you come with something positive, and then in the middle you might do something, you know, you share that concern or that's something that might be negative, and then at the end you make sure you end with something positive. So that's the sandwich technique. And again, just, you know, you can remind them about why we do this screening, why we have these questionnaires, so they understand what it's about. And then you could, if you want to, you can review the questionnaires one by one, questions one by one. Again, the strengths would be the yeses. And then you can review some of the sometimes item, you can share with them, and you can talk a little bit about the overall section. and review the summary page with them, including the scoring, if you're comfortable with that. And then if there are any follow-up actions, make sure you're ready to make some of those recommendations, especially if it's going to be a referral for, some kind of expert to look at the child. Okay, so having these difficult conversations, and I think I said really early on today, which is there isn't a special way to do this. It's really all about practice, practice, practice. And I know that, we all get a little anxious when we might be having to share bad information with families. We're not sure how they're going to take it. We know that they could get upset with us. But I just encourage you, like, commit. If you're going to do this, really just commit to doing it. And allow yourself to, maybe not be very good at sharing the results at the beginning, but just know that you will learn over time. And the more that you do it, the better you'll get at it. And it comes back to the number one thing that helps in all of this work that we do with families is really developing that relationship and developing that trust that you all are so good at doing with the families. And over time, they come to trust you, and then sharing concerns or sharing some negative information about the results of these questionnaires gets easier over time when you have that trust. And I can say, this reminds me that parents have actually been surveyed about some of this stuff too, which and one interesting thing that parents have said was that they ultimately appreciated when their service provider, whether it be their teacher or home visitor or health provider, sort of challenged them a little bit about the results, or challenged them a little bit about how they see their child's development. Of course, we need to do it in a respectful way and not in a confrontational way, but they really appreciated that, because in many situations that did lead to getting the support that the child needed. So again, it's like, just practice, use your really good personal skills and develop that relationship. And then over time, sharing the results will slowly get easier and easier. Okay. All right, so now we're going to have you do another activity. We're going to break you out. Okay, so hopefully it's a little more clear. You're going to want to pull out this document here. Hopefully you can see that. It's called the Andrew Family Study ASQ3 Scoring Exercise. And if you go up, you'll see that it's going to give you some directions, and then you'll read a little bit of background about the family, so you know about the family. Okay, and then in the back there's going to be some questions for you to answer as a group. Okay, so that's this document. So I think we'll go ahead and share with you a link to the document. Hopefully you already got the link to the Google folder, so you have all of these available, but go ahead and please pull that out. We're going to break you into either groups of 3 or 4. Spend maybe 1 to 2 minutes reading about Andrew, the background about Andrew and his family. And then please go ahead and, as a group, answer the questions on the back. Okay, this is going to just be an exercise to help you sort of think through, results. So, right, you have the results, you have the summary sheets, and you have the results of the questionnaire. Now you're getting some background about the family, and then you're going to just think a little bit together about some of these items that's on this sheet. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. And I guess we'll go ahead and get you set up to break out.
And I put the questions in the chat box. So
okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
Yourselves through how to do this. And we'll see you on the other side, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Great. All right, so hopefully that was a useful activity. When we're in person, we would have more time and we would go ahead and have you all share back out some of your responses, but we only have 9 more minutes and I want to make sure we get through to the end to share with you about the Help Me Grow program that I'm part of and as a resource for you and your families, okay? So just summary of what we talked about with the ASQs. It's a screening tool. It really can help to bridge communication with your families. The tool can help in making referrals to community agencies, and we'll talk about Help Me Grow's referrals or support around that. We should base our referrals on a variety of considerations. So in addition to the scores, so again, a reminder about being cautious about just taking the scores straight up, but making sure you're looking at the whole picture of the child and the family. Just a reminder that developmental and social emotional issues can be very complicated for young children and families. And to make sure you use available resources to make decisions about what steps you want to take after the screening, okay? So now I'm going to transition over to talking to you a little bit about our Help Me Grow program here in Alameda County. So
Hopefully that video helped you a little bit to understand more about what the ACQ is. And I know it was kind of long, but that was the only video I was able to get, that I was able to download. This section right here, we're going to talk about the home visits. It's very important for you to discuss your concerns that you might have for your student with the parent. Make sure that you review the lab assessment, read the scores, let them know where the development is and where the delay is. I know that there's a section here in like this home visit that I have that it asks you on the language part, let them know I have concerns regarding your child's language. He falls on the 24 months delay area and he's 3 years old. Here you have a section where it says screening results and plans to follow up. Make sure you let them know, this is the screening results and I'm planning to follow up with special services, and of course with an agreement with the parent. Also, it's very important for you to write down any questions the parents might have. This would also, going back with the teachers conference, teacher parent conference, make sure you make a note of that. I am going to go and look at those informations on your forms, because the only reason I'm saying is because I do have some kids that this past year were delayed and were not referred. The assessment showed that the delay was there, but a referral was never started for that child. So that's very important for you all to look at, all that information. This will be the end of the presentation, where I know that we're going to see each other in a few minutes, but I hope you were able to look at it, and if you have any questions right now, we'll go over it. Okay, so in case I don't see you, have a wonderful, beautiful 2021-2022 school year.